He is also the chairperson for today's session. Mr. Mandala has over 21 years of prolific experience in FMCG, hospitality and food, and beverage industry. He is currently also chairman for Asian Wine Producers Association. Before moving to Grover Zampa Vineyards, Mr. Mandala served as the CEO at Spiritz Private Limited, where he was a part of core management team which developed business in Indian subcontinent. Mr. Mandala was among the 5 Indians to be felicitated as the Commandery du Bon Temps at Fête de la Fleur 2017 and has completed level 4 in wine and spirits through WSET UK. So can we please put our hands together for Mr. Sumeet Singh Mandala? Can we please have you on stage, sir? We are truly blessed and honored to have you, sir. Next on my list, I have Mr. Ravi Gurnani, winemaker, York Winery. He has been a part of his family-owned York Winery since the first year of harvest back in 2008. Prior to that, he was studying at the City University, London for his bachelor's degree and then Warwick University, UK for his master's in engineering management. He looks after sales and marketing at York. So can we have Mr. Ravi Gurnani on stage with a huge round of applause? People at the last row, I can see you not applauding. We are honored to have you on our panel, sir. The next name I have is Mr. Vishal Kadakia, owner, Wine Park. Mr. Kadakia is a wine enthusiast and aficionado. His passion for wines has led him to start Wine Park, which imports, distributes fine wines throughout India and Maldives. After having run wine importing business for 9 years, Vishal's vision was to make wine more accessible to people and fun by educating the end customers. He launched Wine Cart, a website designed to make wine knowledge more accessible to end customers. He recently launched an Indian wine with the name The Daily Dose, with an interactive label showing the winemaking process in line with his education theme. So can we please put our hands together for Mr. Vishal Kadakia? So we are blessed to have you with us today. Another very talented person on my list I have is Miss Carolina Munoz Vaspis, Director of Pro Chili in New Delhi. This beautiful lady, Miss Carolina, is holding the office of Director of Pro Chili from May 2015 at the Embassy of Chile in India. Earlier in 2014, she served as Head of Department, Europe, Africa and Middle East at the General Directorate of International Economic Affairs in Chile. During her career, she's also served as advisor to the Department of South America and Regional Integration Organization, DIRECON, in charge of issues related to negotiation of Pacific Alliance, besides holding many other positions. So can we have this beautiful lady on stage? We are so honored to have you, ma'am, with us today. Last but not the least, for the first session of our panel, I have Mr. Ankur Chawla, founder of Scope Bev and One Fine Meal. Mr. Chawla is a seasoned hospitality and beverage professional. He is co-founder of Scope Bev and One Fine Meal. He has earlier worked as Director of Beverages at JW Marriott AeroCity and his stints with Taj Palace Mumbai and Taj Mahal New Delhi. Can we please put our hands together for Mr. Ankur Chawla? It is such an honor to have you all beautiful people with us today. Thank you so much. And now I would request all of you, along with Mr. Vishen Kumar and Mrs. Shalini Kumar, to please accompany them on stage and light the lamp and start today's ceremony. It is such a proud moment for Spiritz magazine as we right here are going to start Spiritz 2017. So guys, please keep applauding. And this is the level of dedication and commitment that Mrs. Kumar is still not here because, yes, she's busy arranging things and just managing everything. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the level of their commitment. And with this, we officially start Spiritz 2017. Thank you so much, guests. Thank you. So hereby, we're going to start the first session of ThinkPads for Spiritz 2017. And the topic for first session is Future of Wine Business in India. And can I now request Mr. Sumet Singh Mandala, CEO, Grover Zampa Vineyards, he's also the chairperson for this session, to please take over the mic and go ahead with the proceedings of this first session. Can we please have you, sir?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for short delay. I think mornings are not so easy for everyone to come and start on time. But having said, I think we have a wonderful session to begin the Spiritz 2017. And I'm glad that wine is the first topic that we are discussing. Wine, as you know, in India is still a very niche segment. And to me, I think it's very, very special. So it's a great honor for me to mentor this session for the team. And just few thoughts on highlighting what's currently happening in wine business in India and the potential. So to me, I think future is bright. There will be a lot of success in the coming years. Yes, current scenario might be tough for many operators, but there have been very, very positive news over a period of time. I've been part of wine business for probably about 12 years now, and I have seen some great progress both in the international portfolio available in India. At the same time, the domestic wines have really moved up the ladder. Quality for the wine, I think what was there 10 years back to what is available now has improved a lot. And to me, I think that's the most important part in any of the wine region in the world. Quality and consistency, if it goes right for any wine region, I'm sure the growth is going to come. So just highlight few points which might be interesting for you, but I'll quickly take you through them. So India is one of the fastest growing wine market, about 15% CAGR growth since 2000. A lot of people expected this to be 2025, but we have our own set of challenges. To me, I think it's probably only second to China, which is growing at about 30%. So, but overall across the world, I think it's a great great growth. Vineyards, as you know, are located in those two locations, Karnataka and Maharashtra. There is a possibility. A lot of people ask me whether we can grow wine in any other state or region in India. Answer is probably yes, but I think we need to do a lot of investment in research and development, and there needs to be support from government to do that. But as of now, I think great potential in these two regions. They have established themselves as international quality wine producing regions, and they are growing. Last year, we did about 25,000 tons of grape crushing for wine. Also, beautiful thing is that from the farmer's perspective, the price, which was about 25 rupees per kilo average in 2009, has grown up to about 50 rupees per kilo. So which basically proves the point that we are also assisting all the people who are associated with the wine industry towards a positive growth. Also, I think the biggest challenge that we have is that we are spirit-dominated country, and finally, it's good to see that some of the states have realized that, and they started delinking wine from the spirits in their excise policies. Thanks to the quality, which has improved a lot, Indian wines are available in more than 30 countries. I think at Grover itself, we do about 32 odd countries. There is export from Sula. There is some other wineries as well who are currently exporting. So which is slowly creating niche for the Indian wines in international scenario. And coming to the size is about 2.8 million cases. Small, but there's a potential growth of about 20%, and I'm sure it could be a growth for a couple of decades as well. So coming to the opportunities, here we are. Just quickly highlighting the global per capita consumption for wine. France, mind it, is not the largest consumer, but they still are very heavy in terms of consumption. They are about 43.1 liters of per capita consumption. US, which is the biggest wine consuming market in the world, is about 9.9 liters. China has grown a lot. I mentioned earlier they are doing about 30% growth year on year since about 2000. They are still on 1.3 liters. But when it comes to India, we are only on 0.1. So that shows the potential that we have for growth in India. Just roughly put together, a lot of people ask what's the differentiation between the color and how does it stand. So we are fairly healthy because about 61% reds that we consume, about 33.8 for whites and rosé. I think internationally similar trend. A lot of countries even do 70-30, 70 towards red and 30 towards white. But it's quite, I think, quite good. And I believe in the coastal belt or southern belt, there could be a good possibility for the whites as well. And Indian summers, yes, white and rosé can be a very, very good opportunity. Comparing to the Alcobev industry, a lot of you probably will be familiar, but this actually highlights the potential that we have with the wine as compared to the other segments. As I mentioned, wine is about 2.8 million, 0.04 million is the imported segment, 2.4 million is the domestic wine segment. Spirit is at about 330 million. So that's a gap, 2.8 million versus 330 millions. And if you also look at the so-called country spirit, that's another 300 million cases. So it's a huge gap, about 630 versus 2.8 million cases, and clearly underlines the potential. Beer is another about 300 million cases. Figures keep fluctuating between the years, but this is roughly the figures that we had in 16. So this clearly highlights the potential, as I keep mentioning. What are the other areas that we can look at which can help us in this particular segment? If you look at the world wine market, I think wine is number one processed agriculture product, which offers a great potential for us in India. I think world's richest rural regions are the wine regions, and we have taken example from Napa, Bordeaux, Tuscany, Stellenbosch. A lot of Indians are now traveling to these destinations on holidays, and they're getting more familiar with the wine. So this is a perfect example where a rural location, because of the wine, has really developed into a big destination. Tourism is growing, and India is still a new concept. A lot of wineries, of course, are warming up to it. But worldwide, I think that's a big potential. We also know that many wineries across these regions, they sell all their production through this format. They don't look at distribution through local markets or exports, just sell by cellar door pricing and target the tourism there. Vineyards also preserve and enhance the beauty of the countryside. I think the world's wine powers are also the richest economies. Perfect examples with the US, Germany, China, France, Italy for that matter, Chile as well, South Africa, which is growing pretty well in the wine segment. Wine, I think, is a perfect example of soft power, and financially, I think it's growing very strong. And I think it's a great opportunity for direct as well as indirect employment. Why should we encourage wine? Many reasons, but some of the potential reasons here are we currently have about 1 lakh hectares of vineyards in India, and only 2% of that is wine. The rest is table grape. And all over the world, the ratio is about 90% on the wine grapes. So that shows the disparity that we have and the staggering potential which lies with the wine segment. Also, wine grapes require less water. We use very little fertilizers and pesticides. We try to be more natural. Labor can say is still less than the table grapes, and it's a low cost, comparatively low cost for the farmers. Although in Indian conditions, probably we work almost double to that of European conditions, because we have to prune twice. There's no dormancy during the annual cycle, but still it's a lower cost than a lot of other crops. And it's a good value add. I just mentioned that earlier. Farmers are getting 35 to 60 rupees per kilo of a grape, depending on the varietal demand and supply region. But as against 15 to 25, they would get from a table grape. So that's where there's a potential for us to very quickly switch from the table grape into growing the wine grape. Also, given the small land holdings that we have, thousands of farmers can be linked to this industry because few big operators can process the wine and procure the grapes from them. Infrastructure development in these regions, as there is more money flows into these regions, there is a possibility for further growth of infrastructure, which has been our big challenge to promote our tourism and also especially the rural tourism. Health benefits, I think we are quite familiar with. I think several studies have proven that wine is healthier than a lot of other alcobev segments. Also, addiction of wine is almost unknown as compared to spirits. I can't say that you can't be an alcoholic with wine, but chances are much, much lower. Red wine in particular is known very well because of polyphenols as well as antioxidants to be more healthy. And similarly, the various studies have proved that a glass of wine is much better for health than not consuming any alcohol at all. French paradox was a detailed study which was carried out in the southern part of France, in which the region was studied because they were heavy meat eaters. Just because they were consuming red wine, the rate of heart attacks were very, very low in the region. So it was also linked that potentially red wine can be good for heart. So because of that, I think during that period of time, a lot of countries and a lot of new markets started drinking wine. So in short, I think it's a good healthy drink, something which we can definitely encourage in the Indian scenario, where we do have a little bit of challenge in many states where people drink and consume a lot of spirits and with a tendency to go high on spirits. So this could be a much healthier opportunity. Challenges, I think all my industry fellows would agree with me, is that it's a continent and not a country. 25 different states are actually different countries because everybody has its own state policy. Some are little favorable, but most of them are not really very favorable for wine. Fragmented distributors, rules and regulations are still quite primitive, not very pro-wine, I would say. Poor infrastructure is I think is a big challenge in terms of distribution, in terms of storage, and we often have those issues where somebody calls you, I consumed your wine. We were just discussing this morning that I consumed your wine, it was not good, so can you replace it? So the concern there is that we might have made a perfect wine, and when it left the winery, it would be in probably 10 on 10. But by the time the consumer is actually consuming it after 3 years or 4 years in the market, it might be half gone. But the consumer may not understand that it's because of infrastructure or the way it has been stored or handled that the wine quality has gone down. Their first perception is, oh, I tried a wine from so-and-so producer and the quality wasn't good, so I may not be able to consume it again. So that's a very serious challenge for the overall quality for the Indian wines. Lack of wine knowledge is something which I think is a big factor for those volumes, and because we're not allowed to advertise openly, it's always a surrogate advertisement that we can follow. So that's a big restriction. I mean, we can reach only very select segment of people. I wish we had probably more opportunity to reach bigger audience. Cost of land is growing. This I think is a little tough, because if the price of the wine goes up, the grapes go up, it will also impact the final price of the wine. High taxation, also various authorities putting different claims on what we should be doing. High barrier cost, entry cost in various markets. Even the capital with Delhi, with Haryana, with MP, we have seen that if there were like 10 or 15 active wine producers in India, there are only 4 or 5 available there, because cost of entry into a market like this is really, really high for them to sustain business, which I think is a challenge, and it's a pity, because if you are not able to sell in the capital of the country as a producer, it definitely is not really progressive on part of the policy. And further to that, still there are high taxations in various markets, and especially AP and Kerala. Way forward, I would say that potential is big. 1.2, 1.3 billion people, 49% of them are 19 years age, and we have seen that the younger audience is probably more open to wine. They do understand the health benefits. Also, the eating out culture is growing. They want to consume food and wine together, which I think is a very, very good potential target for us. Wine is still very small part of the Indian alcohol industry, good potential to grow. Key drivers include the fact that there's more disposable income. People are willing to go for higher quality and different or quality lifestyle products. Hospitality sector, I think they are interdependent. We have seen that they are proposing a growth of about 16% annually to reach about 27 lakhs 97,000 crores by 2022. If they can grow 16%, I think the 20% growth for wine is very, very possible. Modern retail stores are building up, which will ensure that there's a better infrastructure or quality is offered at a better condition, and also potential tastings and interactions that we could do with the consumer. Big potential of wine exports. This is something that at Growers Zampa we target about 20% of our produce as export. A lot of other wineries are doing that as well. I think as long as the quality is acceptable and is growing, this is something which opens up our doors for the international market. Wine tourism and also the associated industries which come along with the wine, beauty and healthcare. There are a lot of successful international beauty brands which start with wine as a raw material. Various other forms like wine seed oil, natural paper which comes out of the grape crushing. So there are a lot of other industries which can be easily associated and can be grown along with wine. Way forward, I believe it's high time for us to form Indian Wine Marketing Board, and it has to be supported by the government. We had a forum called Indian Grape Processing Board, and I think they need to be assisted also so that they can perform a more stronger role. It was dissolved recently because there was no funding approved by government to carry forward the work. So to me, I think it's a high time that we start doing that. Industry turnover, which is about 1,000 crores, it can be easily about 2,000 crores in 2022. We crushed 25,000 tons. We can easily reach about 45,000 tons by 2020 with about 20% proposed CAGR, and which I think is a big growth for the farmers as well. We encourage wine tourism. We already seen that Sula has taken lead in this form. They have about 2 lakh plus visitors coming and visiting them, which I think is a great example for everyone. At Grover, at both the locations we have in Nasik as well as Bangalore, we are promoting it. We have about 25,000 visitors coming up. We have seen that York doing it. We have seen several Vallone doing it. So there are a lot of other wineries who has understood the potential out here, and they have started to generate this form of business. And India is, I think, slowly establishing itself on the as a competitive producer at the international forum. I'm very proud to say that we are available in a Michelin 3-star restaurant and in Paris, and that was a feat by itself because they don't keep any Asian wines. So for us, it was a great achievement, and we have also seen many Michelin 1 or 2-star restaurants in UK, US also keeping our wines. So acceptability for Indian wines is going to grow, but of course we need to do much more work. I have a big example. I always say that, what Chile has done for India. You look at the initiative that Chile has taken as a country to grow the wine in India. It's something which is supported by the government. They have taken initiatives and they have grown. We have seen South Africa doing that of late. Australia has done it. So I think India has the potential at the international platform to grow the wine sales and come as a credible producer. And most importantly, to de-link the wine from spirits, because I think it's a little unfair looking at the size and the cost of entry into various markets. All that makes it very, very difficult. So that was just setting the expectation. I think I've taken more time than required. So I think it's a very interesting topic. There are a lot of esteemed speakers out here from different forums. I have Ravi, who's next. I will invite him to come over and give his views. York is a beautiful brand. They are growing in quality. Still has been more of a niche player. They have come with some really good wine, and they're getting more credibility in domestic as well as international market. So let's hear from Ravi about his belief, because he's the one who's already running a company, which is a family-run company, and see how he feels it's going to grow. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sumit, for the kind words, and quite some pertinent points that you've raised regarding the status of the industry and where we're heading. Thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Kumar for putting up this lovely event and kind enough to invite me to speak on the future of wine. So I'd like to speak about the future of wine in terms of opportunities and challenges. Just one correction I'd like to make to my introduction. I'm not the winemaker. My brother Kailash is the winemaker. I handle the commercial side of the business, whereas he looks after the winemaking. So yeah, I'd like to talk about the opportunities and the challenges in the wine industry right now from the perspective of a small producer. We're a totally family-run business. It's a hands-on operation. Me and my brother look after it. He looks after the wine market, the winemaking. I look after the commercial side of the business. So it's a very tightly run operation and very hands-on for us. So sometimes the perspective varies from with a scale of operations, your perspective and challenges also vary. Although a lot of the issues that I'll probably highlight will be similar to what Sumedh touched upon as well, given that the industry is at a very nascent stage. So the opportunities are obviously growing consumption. The metros are driving the consumption right now. Markets like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, you have more and more wine-centric outlets opening up. Modern retail is growing. More wine and beer outlets opening up as against your conventional liquor stores. So these are driving a lot of consumption, and they're opening up new points of sale for selling wine. So it's increasing the universe for selling wine out there. So there's more points of sale opening up. Even the existing restaurants are getting more serious about their wine list, so they're taking in more interest in the type of wines they're listing, in the number of wines they're listing. Earlier they would list maybe one red and one white and one rosé and a sparkling, but now they're happy to have multiple brands to offer that variety to customers, because consumers themselves are now becoming curious and asking for more. There's a lot of untapped potential in smaller markets. As Sumed mentioned, there are a lot of markets which have a lot of high taxation right now, which can be quite prohibitive. So if taxation is more rational, it could probably boost consumption in these markets like Andhra Pradesh and Kerala. If any product becomes more accessible in terms of price, it's natural that the consumption will grow. So that is something that I feel that is holding back wine growth in a lot of your as in your smaller markets outside your bigger cities. Hospitality and wine tourism is a big opportunity right now. Again, as Sumedh mentioned, it's growing. It's very important both as a profit center and as a marketing and brand building initiative. Selling wines to visitors at the winery directly means better margins for the producers because they're at the winery. They can enjoy the experience that is being offered to them. They can understand more about the brand, more about the process. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. And people these days are looking for new experiences. Over the years, there are certain spots people would go and have their holidays and weekend breaks. But having gone there, everybody's got a favorite destination they've gone to so many times. So after a point, you're looking for something new, and I think that's where wine tourism can really help fill that gap. And it's a proven model across the world. It's not rocket science. Countries like Australia, regions like Napa, they've taken wine tourism and hospitality to a different level altogether. There are wineries in these countries who sell up to 90 to 95% of their production at their winery. They don't even need to go directly to they don't need to go into the market. They don't need to distribute their wines in restaurants and liquor stores. That's how big wine tourism is out over there. There are opportunities in bringing in new varieties. Up till now, the focus has been a lot on the traditional French varieties, your Shiraz, Cabernet, Chenin, Sauvignon. All these varieties have been very well established now from a viticulture, winemaking, and consumer acceptance as well. So the time is ripe to bring in new varieties, which a lot of people are already doing. And there is scope to go further than that as well. And because people are exposed to imported wines at the same time, imported wines are offering that range right now. So it's natural for them to look for those, or it's an opportunity to offer them those options locally as well. But then that also has its own sets of challenges, which I'd like to speak about. And new varieties also keeps people interested. Every brand needs to keep refreshing itself over a period. So apart from just redoing your label or redoing your packaging, introducing new brands helps them. It helps retain your customers as well. There's an opportunity in premiumization. The wine market has moved on from a stage where it was merely a market for cheap wine. People are willing to spend money. If you produce a quality product, people are happy to pay the price for it, and price is no more a barrier. That's what we've seen, And I remember 3 or 4 years back when we were introducing newer brands at higher price points. We thought that let's not overprice it too much. People should not think that, oh, why should I pay more for this when you already have something at 100 rupees cheaper. But then we found over a period that people are happy to pay that 100, 200 rupees more if it's a good product, if it's of a good quality. They are happy to pay that extra price. There's an opportunity in hotels, 5-star hotels, to do more around Indian wine. There are a lot of hotels who are already doing it, but 5-star hotels bring in a lot of tourism. There's a lot of inbound tourists coming into India, staying at 5-star hotels across different locations, and they're looking for local tastes. They're looking for local experiences. They're looking for local food, local beverages. So that's something I feel, a big push from the 5 stars can also, it lends credibility to what we're doing as well, because it's a symbiotic relationship. When something, sometimes, certain products need to reach a certain platform to get that acceptance as well. So that works both for the sector, for the category, and for individual brands as well. Uniform taxation would go a long way to growing wine sales, opening up new markets. Right now, it can be really cumbersome, state to state, different policies, different renewal periods. So it's very difficult for a small producer like us. It's not very easy to scale up because opening up a new market requires a lot of planning, a lot of resources. So scaling up becomes a challenge. You can scale up your production very quickly, but then it takes you a long time to penetrate new markets. And then you don't want to be sitting on wine which you've made last year and you're still waiting to open up new markets. So then it takes time to build up scale because your access to market is limited. So these are some of the opportunities. Some of the challenges are we still have a lot of geographic limitations for wine production. Nasik and Bangalore, as Sumedh showed on the map, these are the main two wine regions right now. We've not had the chance to explore newer wine regions. So, logistics costs can remain high because Nasik can service Bombay and Pune very easily. Bangalore services the south, but Delhi is far from both these locations. So, we've not reached a stage where there is a new wine region around Delhi, which makes it easier to supply or to cater a particular market. Maybe it lowers your logistic costs, it reduces your time, your access to market. It becomes easier to. So these are we've still not reached a level where we can where we can say, okay, Nasik and Bangalore has been explored fully. Let's go to another new region and see what we can do. The tax regime, like I said, that's a big challenge. Each state has its own policy. Certain consumption states, producing states are more liberal in their tax regime, whereas consumption states can be more prohibitive. So a uniform tax policy makes it easier for all markets, whether they are producing or consuming. And because there are geographical limitations, we cannot, if Andhra Pradesh or Kerala is a high taxation market for wines made outside of Kerala, we cannot just go in and set up a winery over there and start producing wine over there, because the climate is not suitable. So, though these geographical limitations stop us from going out and do that, where you could do that in other spirits or beer. There are some increased costs because of GST as well, with alcohol being out of it. So it's a transitional phase right now. We'll see the full impact over the period of that. The climate can be quite tricky. India is still a tough country to grow grapes in. We have got no history of growing wine grapes, so it can get pretty challenging. Every vintage is a new vintage. That's same all across the world, but more so in India, because there are problems you can face which you've never faced before. There's lack of awareness amongst farmers as well. Vineyards are very fragmented. So, you've got grapes coming from a lot of different locations. The land holding is also very small for the average farmer. So it's difficult to, again, if you want to scale up your grape production, you need to deal with a lot more farmers, because the average land holding is very small. You don't have a lesser number of big farmers. You have a lot of small farmers. So dealing with them can also be, it involves a lot of time and effort in dealing with many farmers. The process for talking about new varieties, while there is potential to do that, the process of doing it is very difficult. Bringing in new clones and saplings from Europe or anywhere else, it's a very long, cumbersome process, involving a lot of permissions, a lot of red tape. So, this is where government support can really help. So there is not a lot of R&D going on right now in the industry because of these challenges. But if certain regulations can become more easier, if there's some government support, a lot of R&D can help innovation in bringing in new varieties, possibly developing an indigenous grape variety as well. So R&D becomes very limited right now, because resources are limited for smaller companies like us. We don't focus a lot on R&D. We focus more on what grapes we can find out there and how good a wine we can make out of it. The grape prices can also be very fluctuating from year to year because of climate variations. If there's a bad rain, if there's unseasonal rains at the wrong time, yields can drop by 30 to 40% in the worst case scenario. Vineyards can be totally wiped out. In fact, worst case scenario, vineyards can be totally wiped out. So grape prices, and because the grape production is still small, the prices can be very volatile. Any variation can have a big effect on the price. Any 10 to 15, 20% variation in the quantity, the prices can escalate really quickly. So managing costs can become a real challenge in those situations. And because sometimes certain unhealthy competitive practices can also end up harming the industry, rather than growing it. So I think there's a lot of scope for a lot of collaborative efforts in the industry. Sumedh mentioned the wine board and some of the marketing initiatives that have been tried in the past. So a more collaborative effort can really help grow the category, educate the customer, and it's a benefit for everybody. Collaborative efforts are not made with any individual objective. It's more for the collective growth of the market. We've seen that happen. It happens all over the world. In different regions, different countries, different boards, they market themselves together, and everybody under that umbrella then eventually benefits. So that's something that I personally would like to see a lot more of happening in the industry. So yeah, those are the thoughts on the opportunities and challenges for the wine industry in India from a domestic producer point of view. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Before I move on to invite next speaker, if you have any questions, we can quickly take a couple of questions in case you want to ask anything to Ravi. Forum is open. Anybody has any questions, please.
I have one question, Ravi. Yes. See, last year also and before that, a lot of audience had this question that why wine companies do not come out with the smaller bottles. Like every time you go to any bar or restaurant, you have to buy the full bottle from outside also. You open the bottle, it's a fragile entity. You open a bottle, you can't retain it for more than 3 days. If you have 330 or 300, 250 ml bottle, people can buy it and sit at the lunch and consume that wine bottle. But nothing much has happened on that front so far. On one side, we say that wine is not growing, but on our part, we're not taking this small step to ensure that is a larger consumption at a smaller level.
I think we all produce 375 ml size bottles. I've not been able to answer that question myself as to why it doesn't sell more. I know a lot of restaurants now are starting to stock 375 ml bottles. I think there's a push from the retail side required as well, because not all retailers stock 375 ml bottles. Certain big ones do, but a lot of them prefer not to. So it's again probably a chicken and egg situation. Maybe people don't know that 375 ml bottles are being produced out there, so maybe they don't ask for it, and maybe that's why retailers are not stocking it. Maybe it requires a push from the retail as well. But I, for one, have always wondered why people don't buy. I mean, there is definitely, as you said, a problem out there to be solved with smaller bottles, but we don't seem to be able to sell enough of them. Sumit can also probably add to that, given they're at one higher scale than us. So what his thoughts are. But what we see at the winery at our tasting room is people consume a lot of 375 ml bottles. So I just don't know why that's not replicated in the retail market or in restaurants outside. We have two people coming at the winery, a husband or a wife, or a couple of friends. They come in, they just have a small bottle. They can call for a second one if they want to, or they'll have two different small bottles out there. So we've seen the consumption and offtake at our winery, but I, for one, don't know why it doesn't happen out there in the market, when clearly there's a problem to be solved. And it's not for lack of producing, that's for sure.
Well, I think that most of the producers now are doing at least half bottle, 375 ml. A 187 model is used, but mostly for the airlines or duty-free segment. I think one of the constraints that we have is that if you look at most of the wine lists across India, they just list the wines by bottle or by glass. So what happens in that case is, if you are buying a pint, cost of that is not half of the full bottle, because it's always usually 10-15% more expensive as compared to half of the full bottle. So that's why they feel probably it's better to go with the big bottle and then get the 5 or 6 glasses out of that. But having said that, I think it's a great format, and we do believe that it offers a big potential. We have seen good success in some of the say clubs, for example, and people are consuming half bottles. In several markets, we have seen the growth of pint actually was higher than the growth of full bottles. We have seen that happening for us in Karnataka, which is one of leading market for Grover. And I think it needs a little bit more education. We obviously need to have better support, as you mentioned, from the retailers as well as from the on-trade to promote the segment. But it certainly can offer give good potential.
I'll just give you a live example. When I was working at a hotel, we ordered for 187 ml bottles of a particular brand which was imported in India. This was purely an experimentation that we did at that point of time. We ordered for almost 1,500 bottles each of red and white, and we placed them in all the minibars in the room. The kind of response that we got, we thought that we'll be able to replicate or take out the entire stock in about a couple of months or maybe 3. I think in the first month itself we had to reorder other bottles. So I think that's where I really see a huge potential, wherein you put 187 ml bottles in the minibar. Not only if the person is, one is obviously when the person opens that bottle and consumes it then and there itself. However, there was another surprising thing that came up. We used to get a lot of calls from the rooms wherein they wanted to buy those bottles, like 5, 10 of them, and take it back purely because, these small little cute looking bottles was a perfect souvenir, for that matter. So I think if Indian wines can go in minibar at 187 ml, I think it could be a great potential, for both the scenarios.
Quickly add, from an imported wine scenario, it's not that easy. Sumit did mention that it is 10 to 15% more expensive, and we have gotten a lot of response saying that we want you to import 375 ml. But then every time we tell them the cost of the 375 ml versus 750 ml, which is sometimes 30% more expensive, the response we get is, hold on, I don't think so, this is worth it. So you have to understand that the cost of the juice versus the cost of the production, okay, is a mismatch. It costs the same to make a 375 ml. Sometimes it costs more to make a 375 ml if a small winery is not designed to bottle 375 ml as compared to a 750. So pricing plays a very big role, especially for imported wines. Now that, of course, can change when it comes to the Indian producer. And the more we see it, probably the more demand that will be.
We can take one more question before we move on to next speaker, if there's any questions. We can also come back by the end of the session and ask questions.
So while the question was going on, we have someone very talented and eminent person amongst us. We have Mr. Sorish Bhattacharya, a veteran journalist and blogger. Mr. Bhattacharya is a name to reckon with the food and wine segment. He is an acclaimed journalist and a blogger who decided to quit the hurly-burly of daily newspapers after 28 years of active journalism and become the master of his own time. He is a regular columnist with Mail Today and commentator with Daily O, a founder member of Delhi Government Club, founder director of the Asian Hawkers Market, and consulting editor of the BW Hotelier. So we are pleased and blessed to have you, and can we have a big round of applause for Mr. Bhattacharya. And can I now request the next panelist to please take the stage?
I would like to invite Vishal to come over and give his inputs. Vishal is behind Wine Park, which has been one of the premier importer for wines in India. He carries many top-rated wines in the portfolio, and brand has really picked up over a period of time. So let's hear the perspective from an importer into the wine market, current status, and what's the potential that Vishal sees in the market.
Thank you all for being here. This is a fantastic forum. The fact that we are one of the first speakers at Spiritz 2017 shows that the future for wine is definitely bright. I would say India best is a very embryonic wine market. I mean, we've not really taken birth yet. From an outsider's perspective, people look at India in awe and says, wow, 1.2 billion people, this is the most exciting market. When they look at our numbers, they are more awed, saying, 1.2 billion and 3 million cases, what's going on here? There is something of a mismatch. But saying that, and with a fantastic presentation that Sumit gave, We are literally in milliliters of consumption per capita, and there is definitely no way we are going down, but we have to go up, and then the only way possible is up in this scenario. I would like to talk a little bit about United States. You know, in 60s and 70s saw USA being in the same position that we are today. You know, Napa was just having a handful of producers. Their wine industry had, you know, no takers. I mean, there were very few people drinking really wines. 200 million people odd in the 70s, and there was really no consumption. 40 years down the line, fast forward, and there is 1/4 of United States drinking wine today, almost 100 million people. And they are 9.9 capita liters per person. And the most exciting market for producers around the world to sell their wines. I know producers all over the world focus only on Americas in order to sell their entire production. Now, I don't see India too far behind. I mean, we have to dream. It's very important. Otherwise, sleep is boring. But when we dream, 100 million people drinking wine in India is not that difficult to achieve. And if we become that, we would be the most exciting market for the world. What people are already thinking about India being the next frontier in the wine world is not too far off. But then, of course, there are many challenges that both Sumedh and Ravi spoke about. But there are lots of positives. Today, winemakers coming into India are absolutely thrilled by the way people are drinking wine in India. I mean, you hardly see a forum where somebody is mixing Coke into a wine, or somebody is adding a cube of ice in their glass. I think one of the nicest compliments that people give to India is that people in India drink wines like how Europeans do. With such a small nascent wine industry, we have already there is already a great footprint into the consumer. There is already a system that has been built in. I don't know how it has come about, but it has, and we are doing all the right things. You know, there are going to be challenges. We talked about taxation, we talk about fragmentation, we talk about all these things, but you know, they are not going to go away. They haven't gone away in the last 10 years, and I don't see them going away, though I am an optimist. But we have to work through these challenges, and that is what I have done. You know, a few years ago when we decided to bring in premium spirits into India, there were hardly any takers. I mean, you know, who would want to buy a bottle costing 3,000 rupees? Who would want to buy a bottle costing 10,000 rupees MRP? But I thought that it's time for a consumer to graduate to premium wines. And our gamble took off really well. We brought in fantastic wines, great stories behind those wines. We brought in a diverse portfolio. We represent 30 wine regions across the world, from some 35 odd producers. We bring in grape varietals, which are almost 25 of them into the country. And that really helped us because consumers were thrilled. They wanted to try something new. They were bored with the Sauvignons and the Chardonnays. They were bored with the Shiraz. They wanted to try a Tempranillo. They wanted to try, you know, blends. They wanted to try wines from Chile. They wanted to try Carmenere. They wanted to try Malbecs. They wanted to try Torrentes. These are all, you know, exciting grape varietals which we brought into the country, and people took us with open arms in spite of the fact that they were a little bit premium. I think today, if we have to really grow this industry forward, I think majority of the decision makers are going to be in this forum, in this very 2 days, who can shape up how the wine industry will look like. because we are the trendsetters out here. We are the people who are bringing in the new wines. We are the ones who are promoting them. We are the ones who are deciding the education aspect of it. There are restaurateurs who are exposing these wines to new clients and putting them on their wine list, hopefully at a good pricing so that people buy. So I think the industry will go step by step. There is no instant gratification. I think that today the most important thing that we need in order to grow this industry, and we have heard all the aspects, is education. I think education is the key. I feel that today we need to have a sommelier in every restaurant. I think every restaurant, if decides that out of their entire staff, if they have one guy dedicated towards wine, just one, okay, and it's not a very difficult thing for a restaurateur to do. I mean, have that one guy just sell wines, have that passionate guy who has probably done his WSET to decide on their wine list, and a consumer walking in, at least give them an option that would you like to try a glass of wine. If you have that one person, every restaurant doing it, I assure you, there is no way that your wine sales will not go up. I think it is the most important thing. I had a French, a guy from Champagne come into India, the owner of Bellicat Salmon, and he told me, Vishal, you know, in Paris there are 2 hotels right next to each other. And in one hotel, I sell so much champagne, they sell so much champagne, it's not even funny. And in the other, there is no champagne sale. I said, why? I said, the only reason is because the general manager of the hotel decided that everyone who walks into this hotel is going to be asked one question. Would you like a glass of champagne? That's it. I think the answer is either yes or no. More people were saying yes than no. The other hotel was offering them Perrier. Fine, they sell more Perrier. So I think the initiative has to be taken by the restaurateurs, and the consumer is the king. And if we are able to do that, I think we will have a very exciting wine space. Saying that, I think 2 most important qualities that we need to have is passion and patience. I think if we have both of these, I think we can do really well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vishal, for your lovely insight. Just a couple of questions. Anyone from the audience, anything for Vishal? Otherwise, we can move to the next speaker. Any questions? I think the imported wine segment is, again, very, very interesting. That's how it's getting more competitive. We are getting some of the new varietals which are not even grown yet in India. So it's a big opportunity. Any questions, any thoughts?
Good morning, panel, and thanks a lot. I just have a small question that whenever a person visits to a wine shop, so the person who was selling the wine at the retail segment, he is not able to do a suggestive selling. And at that point, I feel many times the scope is lacking. So what is the wine company initiative in that?
See, if you visit to wine shops across the world, you know, what I have seen in many of the big cities, you know, there are lots of people working in the wine shops who are very passionate about selling wine. Okay, this is the most important thing, as I keep on saying again and again to a client, that there is so much a wine company can really do. We can have our sommeliers and work the floor for a day or two, but at the end of the day, it is your shop. And at the end of the day, you have to sell more wines. So you have to hire people who are passionate about selling wines. It's as simple as that. If the guy knows all the grape varietals, and if somebody walks in, he exactly knows what the requirement of your consumer is, whether he wants a medium-bodied wine, a full-bodied wine, a light-bodied wine, whether he enjoys whites, rosés, reds. And with a little bit of hand-holding, a client can very easily choose. They just need a little bit. You don't need to go all the distance. So when I go to shops, I have seen this all the time. But in India, unfortunately, these things are not available yet. People don't see a merit in putting an educated wine guy in order to do selling. So these things have to change. Once they do, you will definitely see more and more sales which are happening. That's my understanding.
Hi, I'm having a great time here. Thank you all for your inputs. My question is, Vishal, as you mentioned that each restaurant having a sommelier, and you mentioned WSET. I've had a lot of WSET in my life, but to be honest, I mean, even though after being so interested in wines, drinking wines, reading about wines, studying wines, there's only a limited, very limited knowledge that you get after such courses. I mean, and to be able to guide someone, I mean, how do I do it? Like, since you mentioned, and I keep both inclinations to have restaurants and to, you know, have wine in my life as a professional. So how do you suggest, like, you know, one does it after, say, WSET 3?
So wine, WSET gives you an entry into the wine world. This is my take on it. Okay.
Right.
But you have to self-study. I mean, I have Sumedh out here who has done WSET level 4. He's gone all the way. I have done a level 2 only. But I keep on studying and reading about wine. It's my passion. And wine also has got to do with a little bit of flair. So to answer your question is that even if you have done your WSET level 2s and level 3s, it's not necessary that, you know, and if you stop learning, then you go back to 0. You need to identify a person who is passionate about it too, who has got constant studying going on, constant reading going on, and make him the captain of give him responsibility, okay, and make him the captain of your restaurant or a wine bar or whatever you have, and then see how he takes it forward. I think it is important that just doing a WSET and then expecting miracles that's not going to happen. India does not have a wine culture.
Right.
Inherently, you have to identify and you have to build it. And I have seen so many people doing wonders in restaurants just because they have a fantastic captain who is so passionate about wines, who keeps on reading about it, and their sales are going up all the time.
Thank you.
Just quickly answer another aspect to it. I think there are two things involved there. First is the knowledge, second is the skill set. So while a professional program like WSET will give you the foundation or the education or knowledge or awareness on wine, how much are you inclined to wine and how much you learn, it all depends on how much you practice. So more tastings, more you learn, more you read, more you learn. And to me, I think having done level 4, the best thing to me was the technique of wine tasting, you know. So if you know that this is what you need to follow while you are tasting any wine, it really helps you. I mean, so at the end of it, I think more you taste, more you're inclined, more you can learn. You can do level 4, you can do master wines. If you're not really inclined and you just done it for a professional program degree, it's never handy. And it's for every profession, it's not only for WSET. Yeah, but it's an interesting question, thank you. So I'd like to
Best sommelier that I have come across has got no degree in wine. He was an amazing sommelier who had got no WSETs. He was a French guy who just drank wine from childhood and became a sommelier. It's all about passion.
Yes.
Sumedh, I want to speak 2 minutes. Please. My name is SP Chaudhary. I'm the CEO of Code India Limited. We are all talking about wine, why wine is not getting sold in India, the way everybody looking for the wine culture. But basic fact, we forget the pricing of wine. I have spent almost 48 years, 49 years in industry. My life has gone to industry. I have seen every part of the liquor industry, right from 70s onwards. At one point of time, when you talk about wine, we used to talk about beer. Beer was not getting sold at all during 90s. We used to work hard on the selling beer. Then I was the president of Chauvelais. But I used to tell everybody, wait for the day, beer will sell like hotcakes. Same thing, but a couple of years back, 4 or 5 years back, people used to come to me for selling wine. They came from Australia, they came from South Africa, they come from every part of the world. They came to us, okay, Mr. Chaudhary, can you sell our wine? I said, yes, I can do it. Can you give me the price, what I'm looking for? Because we all compare Europe, we all compare USA. Can everybody think in USA $1 wine bottle is available? I don't say it's the quality, but $1 bottle is available. €1 bottle is available. It may go up to $100 or maybe 100 euros. I'm not comparing that. But a poor man wants to drink wine. He has $1 to pay or $1.5, $2 to pay to get a bottle of wine. He can drink it. Same as the question in Europe. You go to Europe, you go to the shop, ask for a wine, you get €1. What to save there? When I was trying to, I had a lot of passion for wine. I'm telling you today, I wanted to sell wine like anything. As the beer was a passion, my passion, wine became, I wanted to sell wine as much as I could sell wine in India. But I could not do it, and I dropped the project after working on 4 years on this project. Because I say, if I cannot make wine a mass drinking, I am not able to sell wine. Mainly came the pricing. Now what happens that we say, okay, how many can afford every day 300 rupees for a bottle of wine? How many people actually drink wine? Then how many can spend 300 rupees? But there, you take a wine, drink every day and enjoy. But how many can do here? Then, not available. This wine should be sold like beer and see the growth of the wine. But it cannot be done. The only thing I have been talking this subject for the last 6-7 years with all wine producers. I went to Australia, I went to Italy, I went to South Africa, all possible, and discussed with them how, but they were ready to give me €1 wine. But by the time it comes here, the bottle becomes 500, 600, 800 rupees. Because of your import fees and street tax and all that. So my dear friends, we should work hard. Wine is a wonderful thing. It must be drunk, but pricing is a factor. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chaudhary, thank you so much for your insight. Well, I think everybody in the forum would agree that yes, pricing is one of the critical factor out there. That's why if you look at in my presentation, and also my colleague Ravi mentioned that the taxation that we have, the entry barriers that we have across India, almost every state, a wine which ideally should be maybe selling at 400, 500 rupees, 300 of course is a long shot, but 400, 500 rupees, because of the taxation is priced at 700, 800. While, as a producer, we do offer wines at 500 rupees as well. But I think what should be selling at 500 is finally sold at probably 800, 900, depending on the market. And till correct. International wines, yes. So ultimately the taxation that we have and the cost of logistics, the cost of entry into market are very, very high, and that's what I highlighted in my presentation as well. If we are able to have a better support on that, yes, we can probably convert a lot of beer into wine. Thank you so much for your insight anyway.
I'd just like to add one more point to what Sumedh said. You make a very valid point. Nobody's going to disagree with that. Sumedh spoke about taxation, which is one part of the high costs involved. The other part of the high cost is the cost of production itself. You have finished wine available in countries in Europe and America for $1 and €1, but it's difficult for us to find a grape for $1 or €1 over here. So that is the other problem we have. Because we've not achieved the economies of scale that these countries have, they've been producing wine for decades. So, I mean, there are wineries, so the Centuries, yeah. So the size of the Indian industry is 3 million cases, as Sumedh said. There are wineries abroad that produce, that's not even half their capacity. They're producing in tens of millions, cooperatives. So the scale at which the €1, $1 wines, the scale at which if you look at them, they will look like refineries. They will not look like wineries. So we'd love to get there, but we have a long time to get there. I hope we get there eventually because that will really boost consumption. But yeah, it's going to take time. Maybe in our lifetime, hopefully.
It will definitely happen. So I would like to invite Carolina. She is the face for chili in India. Let's hear her feedback on the current market and what do Chilean producers and Chilean government think about potential of wine in India. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thanks for inviting me today, and also thanks to everybody to be here today, discuss this interest matter, especially for us as Chilean wine producers. So for us, it's very important. If you ask me directly, the consumption in India of wine is huge. No. We saw big increase in the consumption. The answer is no. But if you ask me, you see potential here? The answer is yes. And then you said, well, what is talking about this lady? I mean, everything is no, and you said you have potential here. First, as Vishal said, yeah, if you see the numbers, the population is so big. I mean, if you compare Chile with India, you are going to start to laugh. In Chile, we have just only 18 million people. So Delhi has more people than Chile, I think. Yeah, 1.2 billion people is a lot, but not so much drink wine. But I think if you compare 2 years before, it's changing. 10 years before, nobody talked about wine. For all the people was whiskey, and it's still whiskey. But now they recognize that it's something else, that is wine, that recognize is red and white and rosé and sparkling. That is something that changed. We are not requiring the people understand the different varieties. We are not, in this level, we cannot expect the people can talk about Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmener, Syrah. So obviously, the consumer are learning about it. And that is important, including for us. I mean, if I can tell the Chilean experience, we produce wine for so many years, but we understand the wine just only 20 years ago. So that is something that you need to think about it. A country who produce wine understand recently the passion and how to drink wine and how to serve wine. And in that sense, I would like to share with you an experience that India has. Maybe it's other sector, but give to you an idea. 10 or 15 years ago, some importers with a vision said, we are going to start to import apples to India. A lot of people, a lot of producers, a lot of importers of other products said, you are crazy. Man, we produce apples. We have apples. We have so many quantity of apple here. Who is going to buy apples from outside at a high price? So, well, nowadays, India is the second largest importer of apples worldwide. So people start to try. They start to see what happened. They want to try the different flavor, the qualities that other countries can offer. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's different. And people want to try different things. And that is something is growing every year. So obviously, in terms of wine, most of the people said wine in India, but they love whiskey. They love other kind of liquors. You are crazy? No, we have a vision here. So the market is going to move. The people want to try. People want to see different things. They are traveling. The young people are studying abroad, and they understand now much better what happened with the wine world. So they want also to bring the same here. So we need to give to them the opportunities for that. We need to create the environment for that. Also that I'm seeing opportunities is in the women market. That is something that is growing. That is something that ladies are asking for other kind of liquors. And obviously, for example, sparkling wines is going very well during the female market. It's the same with wine because it's not so strong. It's different. Some wines are sweet. So that is something that they are requesting too. Obviously, we have some challenge to face. In my side as exporter, to say, is the duties. That is very high. It's 150% duties. That is something that we need to deal with. We cannot fight at the end with that. We need to see how we can manage that. That is our challenge. Other things that we are facing is the taxation, that everybody talk about that. It's the same for us. And also for Chilean companies, that is something that they are start to understand is the culture in how the people want to drink the wines. I start to see, for example, during the meal, people don't drink so much water, or I mean, Indian people eat, but without liquids. So I said to the companies, if you want to promote the wines with the meal, probably it's not going to be the best way. Maybe you can offer to the people as an aperitif at the beginning. It's not, I mean, everybody said in the Chilean industry, you're crazy, it's not an aperitif. And I said, yeah, but you need to start to educate the people. You need the people try first the product. So if they try as aperitif, doesn't matter. They are going to try. Later, you can move to, the wine for a meal. But that is a step by step. So I see a lot of potential, but we need to understand that it's going to be different stage that we need to work, including, as some people ask here and discuss, smaller bottles. I know that is expensive. I know it's sometimes difficult, but we can take that as a promotional, for example. So it's like a special edition that you can find in some stores and that we can provide in a small quantity. Because I understand also for a lot of people, wine is a new product. They want to try. Absolutely, they want to try. But sometimes it's so much expensive to buy one bottle for just to try. What happens if I don't like it? I'm going to lose all the rest of the product, and it's not cheaper. So maybe sometimes we can try to work in some promotional activities with these small bottles, for example. So we can invite the people to try the product. I spoke with so many people also who said, Carolina, now Chile is growing in terms of wine here in India, and it's true because I can see, I saw a couple of months ago in Jaipur, in a hotel, so many, not so many, but it was 3 different types of Chilean wines in the menu. Last year was not like that. Now you can see it. So that is opportunity. That is showing how the market is growing. And also people are asking, is possible to find something different from Chile? We have this kind of wines, but we want to try something different, something better, something in different range of price. So that is something that we need to work also. But if the people start to ask on that, it's because you can find the interest here. Also, that is something that I would like to mention is how important is the importers' products in the market. Obviously, I need to promote my country, and you need to buy Chilean wines because it's good for me. But also, if you work jointly with foreign companies, the local industry is going to grow too. As I told you, 20 years ago in Chile, we have just few companies working in wines. We accept to work with some Spain companies in Chile. They put some investment there. They work in a joint venture. And for us, it was very helpful because we understand how to improve the product, how to put more technology in the product. So they help us a lot, and obviously we open the market to them also. So I think India has in the correct moment to put all the stakeholders together and try to move together in the market. I think that is the key nowadays. If we can work together on that, it's going to be a benefit for everybody. It's going to be the benefit for the local wineries. It's going to be a benefit for the foreign wineries, for the consumer, that is the most important, also for the importers. So I think, and I invite all the people also to see these challenges and also these opportunities in the market as a huge opportunity to work together, to try to create something between all the actors. Because sometimes also we need, and to be honest, we need to face some challenge with the regulations, for example, with the government. But if we work together, we can face all that issues together too. So, and it's going to be much easier, I think. And we can see how the market is going to grow faster. So I invite to everybody also to take these opportunities and challenge as an invitation to work together on this sector. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we have to keep the time in mind. So what I'm going to do is we'll finish with the two speakers, and then we can open the forum to everyone to ask any questions. I hope that's all right. I would like to invite Soresh. I think he's a very passionate wine man, and he has been working with wine for a long period of time. So let's understand Soresh's perspective on wine, current scenario, and what we expect in future. Thank you, Soresh.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Spiritz magazine. Sumit, I remember the time I was sort of writing, just begun writing about wine. You had just left Taj Hotels, and it was a very brave thing to do because you had a good job and you got into the business of selling wine. And of course, we all know your career trajectory since then. It is a pity that today not many, I don't see my friends from the hotel and restaurant industry out here because, you know, I thought I will talk more as a consumer. And I'll talk about the role I feel the hotel and restaurant industry should play and should not, and have not played yet to promote at least our wine culture. I believe, you know, I see the way, you know, Carolina talked about apples, you know, you know, I mean, apples is a great example to give, but I draw a lot of inspiration from coffee. Like 5 years ago, no one talked about Indian coffee. We didn't even know that India is one of the oldest producers of coffee in the world, you know. But today, everyone is talking about Indian coffee, not only in India, but all over the world. And the reason, of course, is some very intelligent marketing, intelligent branding. And, you know, it took just one young man, you know, from America who was on a holiday to start it all. You know, he created this brand called Blue Tokai. And suddenly everyone was talking about single estate coffees. They're talking about Monsoon Malabar. Hotels and restaurants are promoting it, the Indian coffee in a big way. And then one thing led to another, and Indian coffee has become so big that the Coffee Board of India has also now started branding Indian coffee, not only for India, but all over the world. So there is, I think, a clear need here, and you know, I think a magazine like Spiritz can spearhead the movement to actually to give some deliverables. I mean, like all these meetings often turn out to be talking shops. But it's time we sort of came up with like a declaration of what the wine industry expects from the hotel and restaurant industry. I think FHRAI, NRAI, and Hotels Association of India should be brought into the, you know, into the spectrum, and let there be a dialogue. I think the main problem, as Mr. Chaudhary said, he talked about the retail level. The main problem in India is that the hotels and restaurants have not promoted a wine culture. Now, you go to anywhere in France or Italy, you go to any restaurant, in any trattoria, and I've eaten a lot in rural Italy and in France, they just present a jug of wine which is locally produced. Now, this is not a branded wine or no Muto Rothschild or something, just a jug of wine, and you love it. Good pizza, freshly out the oven, and a nice bottle of wine on a nice balmy, you know, August afternoon. What more do you want? But here in India, I see no pride in Indian wine. I feel, you know, that Indian hotels and restaurants should promote Indian wines, and that will create a market for wines in general. And I'm very happy to note that Indian wine industry is taking its job very seriously, and the quality of wines is just going up. You talk about any brand here, we have got two very good brands represented here. You know, I see a lot of hope in Indian wines, but the hope turns into hopelessness when I see the pricing in hotels and restaurants. You know, it's amazing that people, we were talking about sommeliers. I've seen, I go to a restaurant and I say, so what are your good wines? And, you know, they immediately rattle off Australian, French, Chilean wines, you know. So then I always do this trick question that do you have, you know, XYZ Dindori Shiraz, so, you know, XYZ Sauvignon Blanc, and those are all Indian brands. They said, no, sir, you know, why do you know, we have got such a fantastic wine, you know, this Australian wine, you know. I said, okay, now, what is the difference between this Australian wine you're offering and the Indian wine I'm asking for? And there's no answer to that question, you know. And the difference is that the Australian wine that they're offering with great elan costs half of the price of the Indian wine. Now that is, for me, the real tragedy in India. You know, Indian restaurants and hotels do not take Indian wines, do not treat Indian wines with the pride that they should. They should be promoting, like, look at how Napa Valley restaurants teamed up with the Napa Valley wineries and promoted the wine culture in California. And from California, it became an all-American phenomenon. I remember when I was a student in America, and that was 1988. You know, we used to have these parties where we used to have wine from the jug, you know, wine from the box. E&J Gallo used to have these, you know, boxes of wines. We used to take one party pack, and, you know, we used to drink out of plastic glasses, you know. So wines out of the box, and the same people who used to drink wine in those plastic glasses today are, you know, spending on really expensive wine. Some of them are wine collectors. My friends who were in America now, a lot of them have become very rich and influential. So they have big collections, but they all began drinking the wines from the box, you know. But at least there was a starting point. In India, I don't see that starting point happening, you know. It's great to have, you know, Vishal made a very good statement that let there be a sommelier in every restaurant. Let hotels and restaurants at least invest in a sommelier. You know, and invest in the education. Now, what I'm seeing is that that's not happening. You know, the wine companies are investing in the education of hotel staff and restaurant staff, but not the hotels and restaurants. So there is a mismatch, and I think we have to now take this dialogue and just you know, be very upfront about it and say that, look, we all talk about pricing, we all talk about taxes. What people don't say is that most hotels and many restaurants are exempt from paying the taxes because of the DG, what is it called, DGTD? The sort of waiver that is given on import duties to restaurants and hotels which earn a particular level of foreign exchange. Now, they have been getting this for not one, two, but for about 15 years now. And yet, the price advantage has not been transferred to the consumers. So, just as in the way that the price advantage is not being transferred to consumers for imported brands, similarly, the Indian brands, which are anyway suffering because of because of the low market, you know, the low demand for grapes, the prices of grapes tends to be higher than, I think, in most developed markets, if I'm not wrong, you know. And also there are a lot of seasonal and climatic factors which are responsible for the prices going haywire, everything, you know. But isn't it, you know, isn't it the time that the hotel and restaurant industry formed an alliance with the wine makers of India and created the wine culture? You know, I think, as they say, charity begins at home. You know, any good thing begins at home. And in the food space, you know, which I write more about now, I see a lot of movement happening towards, you know, indigenous products. People are very proud now of indigenous products. You know, I'm part of many forums where we are promoting organic, traditional products. This hotel, for instance, has a Friday pop-up restaurant where they only produce very modern dishes using ingredients like ragi or mandwa or cholai, such things, makhana. Now, I think there is a similar need for an alliance, of the hotel and restaurant industry with the wine industry to promote Indian wines, and that once people get used to Indian wines and get used to the culture of wine, everything else will follow. We cannot have a situation where some substandard, wines from abroad are just passed off by, waiters in hotels because they're being incentivized. We have to draw the line. We cannot have a situation where Indian wines are priced 3 or 4 times more or 5 times more than their, MRP. So there has to be some justice in this world, and I think I've been batting for it for a long time. I think the whole industry and all the, magazines such as, Spiritz and all, they should make a consistent pitch that it's time, FHRAI sort of dissuaded, should come up with new guidelines. The FHRAI guideline is that you can have a markup of 400 to 500%. They've capped the markup to 500%. For wine, I think it's a little less. But it has to be, the markup has to be a little scientific. You can't just have any markup where they say that, okay, 500% laga lo. But, it can't be like that. It has to be, there has to be a scientific basis for markups. And, then a lot of pricing stability will be brought in. So this is my humble submission. I think we need to have a bigger dialogue, more meaningful dialogue. And I think, I can request Bishan, if you can, initiate a movement where we bring out like a white paper on how the wine industry pricing can be made more suitable for the consumers, how, the nature of wine, pricing has to change if consumption has to grow. Otherwise, it will remain a pipe dream. Mr. Chaudhary has eons of experience. I don't have that kind of experience in the industry, but I think we should all remember his words when we leave this hall. Thank you very much. Thank you for being so patient.
Thank you so much, Suresh. I think this was very enlightening. And I think being from having worked with the hospitality industry as well in the alcohol industry and wine industry, I do feel that there was a time, 15 years back, 20 years back, when I was in hotel industry, we had a constraint. For us to put an Indian wine on the list, it was a bit of challenge because, maybe 30-40% chances that a wine, when a consumer would ask for it, he would complain about it. But that's not the scenario anymore. The quality today, I can bet you that I can write you a wine list with probably 25 Indian wines, and there will be hardly any complaint about that. And that's how the quality of Indian wine has grown. And if our wines are acceptable at the international forum, for us, France is the largest export market, and we do fair bit of volume, more than like 10,000 cases. And to me, I think it's a proud fact that, if French, who definitely don't need Indian wines, but they're open to it because Indian cuisine is growing, and with the Indian restaurants where we promote our wines, they think it's a great match. So if we can do that in the international platform, and we do the same way in UK, in the US, Japan, which are some of the big markets for us, I think that sense of being proud about the local produce has to grow. I'm not saying that all the hoteliers do it or don't do it, but I think it can be done better. And I think that was a very, very valid point which Suresh had put forward. And we definitely need help from the hospitality industry, because that's a industry, as I mentioned in my presentation also, is much, much larger. And if the hospitality industry can go 16% moving forward from here to 2022, wine industry can probably do faster. So on that note, I would like to invite Ankur. Ankur has spent a fair bit of time in the hospitality industry. He has worked with some big hotels, with Taj Mahal in Mumbai. He's also worked with the JW Marriott. Let's understand, he was custodian for beverage. So let's understand what was his thought process then, and know as he has turned entrepreneur, what is that he's looking at from the wine industry.
Thank you, sir. I obviously feel very honored to be a part of this distinguished panel. 100%. And I also feel a little cheated. After these people speaking about the bright future of India in terms of wines, I don't think I've got many points left. However, I just start with saying that the future of wine business in India, I think, is one of the most common discussions that appear whenever we travel or whenever there's somebody else traveling from the world to the country. And I think one of the most common answers that actually come around is basically we are a second largest population in the world, and these many people are actually the youth, and so on and so forth. But I think if you actually put the real parameters in place, are you legal drinking age? Does your religion allow you to drink? Even if your religion allows, does your state allow you to drink or not? And then coming to your pocket allowing you to drink or not, and then even if your pocket allows you to drink, do you have that kind of awareness, or have you got that kind of exposure to wines? I think the number is not that high right now. I read somewhere that the number is actually around 2 to 2.5% of the total population. But the good part is that the number in itself, if we actually convert into the numbers, is not bad. Though the per capita consumption is something that has to really go high, and Mr. Vishal rightly mentioned that it will fortunately go high, only there's no other way out. I think it's more about the culture that really will actually define wine over the period of time. There were times, there is a lot of negativity as well, that there has to be a lot more that has to be done. But I see a lot of positivity as well. Look at the pace at which India has actually grown in terms of wines. Probably 10 years ago, I would not see a wine, even in a social gathering or a wedding for that matter. Today, that wine, which was probably a taboo at that point of time, is a part of any beverage package in any of the hotels, be it Indian, imported. It's as much important as a whiskey or a vodka, in the entire bar range for that matter. So I think we've kind of grown well. Would it reach the dining table of every single house? I think it'll take time, but I think that's going to happen eventually for that matter. There are, I think, 4 major factors that I really saw would be, that there'll be a lot more efforts to be done, in those 4 factors. First, obviously, I think I would not speak much about the price. I think it'll get much more controversial otherwise. So price, obviously, is, you have to hit the sweet price. You have to hit the, keeping all the taxations on anything and everything in mind. There were times when we were actually selling less number of bottles, but the per bottle price was really high. Today, if I see, I think the number of bottles that are getting sold are much higher, but the average price of the bottle has really gone down, which is good for that matter. At least it's increasing the entire culture of drinking wines. The second most important point is obviously the liquid itself. The quality of wine, I think Indian producers have done some real good job. More than that, I think a lot of imported wines that are coming to India at that kind of price point, which are even competing to Indian price points being from India, are really good. I mean, we can get a good bottle of wine at a good price right now. Matching a beer bottle price, I think it's going to take time. I think that's a long shot, but still, we can get a good bottle of wine at 300-400 rupees, which I think is not bad right now in India. Then obviously, I think one more thing that we kind of I really want to focus on is that look at the end consumer. There is a reason that he would cross that shelf, but still look at the bottle, the packaging for that matter. The label, how the wine actually label, talks about that particular wine. When you pick up the bottle, how the bottle really feels. I think these are small little points which at times we kind of miss, because there is a lot of perceptions that we actually, or there are a lot of mind blocks that we actually make before we even open the bottle of wine. There were times, I know it's kind of better a scenario right now, but there were times when you say that a French or an Italian wine, if you get a bottle of wine as a gift, and if it is a French or an Italian, you feel good about it. You're like, perfect, this is a good bottle of wine. But when you get an Australian or a Chilean for that matter, there were times when people had perceptions that, this is not a good bottle of wine. So I think a lot of work on that side will be done, I'm sure. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are already doing it. And then I think over the period of time, specifically the future, I think the point of sales is something that we will have to increase to really get that particular kind of volume. Gone are the days when if you wanted a good bottle of Super Tuscan or a good bottle of wine, you had to knock the doors of the hotels of 5 stars, and there was no other way, to get it other than paying 400% more than what the wine is supposed to be. Right now, if you see, you can get a good bottle of wine, like an expensive bottle of wine, at a restaurant, at a cafe. There are retail shops that have done an amazing job. Storage, let's keep it aside, but there are retail shops that have done a great job in making those wines available to the consumer. I think going forward, a couple of more places that I really see, wine being, consumed or at least bought a lot. Of lately, I think there is a lot of private cellars at home that is increasing. If there were times when people used to boast about the collection of whiskeys at their house, I think time has come when people have started boasting about the collection of wines in their houses. Cellar management is something that has just of lately started in India. So I think if people start storing good wines in their houses, I think that can really be another point of sale that can really, really work well. Export markets is another huge, huge potential that we can see, because the kind of wines that we have, the kind of liquid that we have, at the kind of price that we are offering, I think it is actually a better product for that matter at the same price compared to any other good wine across the world. And I strongly say that because we've done some blind tastings as well, wherein there were 3 glasses of wines, red wines poured in a glass, and nobody was told which was which. Most of the times, at the similar kind of price points, Indian wines have actually won, on top of other Australian or probably, other country wines for that matter. There's a lot of innovation that is, I think, yet to happen. You go to Napa Valley, you go to other places, there is a lot of use of technology that is happening. I'm sure that it started over here as well, but I still see, I think that the future will have a lot more innovations for that matter. I'm not talking about synthetic wines like the way they're getting made in California, but I'm still talking about the grape sorting machines and stuff like that, which will really, really improve the quality, and I think innovation across from the production to the consumer side for that matter. More or less, that's what it is. Though the picture looks very rosy in the future, I'm sure it's a very tough situation right now. But yes, there is a lot of hope, at the end of the tunnel. I think the supply will have to generate the demand over the period of time. That's what I feel about the wine industry right now. It used to be a luxury. It has become an affordable luxury. I think going forward, the luxury word will go out and it will become affordable over the period of time. Wine is not going to take the share from the pie of the entire alcohol segment. I strongly feel that it's going to increase the size of the pie. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ankur. So having finished all speakers, some great insight, different perspective of the industry, I would like to open the forum. We can ask some questions. At the same time, anybody has any viewpoint, we'll be more than happy to listen to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Raju Bazirani. I've got some exposure to wine business. When I was in Radico Khaitan, we had a partnership with E&J Gallo. You mentioned about E&J Gallo. We started it in 2001, once the quantitative restrictions were given a go-by and the government allowed imports of wine freely or any other item freely. The point I'm trying to make is, it is very good to talk about volume, pricing, everything. But what one did with Rukan Luthra that time, I'm mentioning because we did a lot of work for about 10 years, right from 2001 till 2011, was wine appreciation. The entire Radico staff would be judged in the assessment by the number of wine appreciation programs he or she would have done. 1. 2 is, we did a lot of training, sales staff training, distributor staff training, how to store wine, how to serve wine, how to drink wine. In other words, we have to reform this, and we have to bring reform in this entire wine business. It has to evolve. Already about 30, 40 years have passed in wine, wine sales in India, but it has not evolved the way IMFL or Scotch has evolved. So I want to stop here because we all know wine, but we have to go to the grammar of the language to make it big. Once the consumer understands what is a varietal, once he or she understands what is a generic wine or a table wine, what is a wine fresh, you know, how to respect wine, how to not gulp wine, how to, you know, what is a wine tier. All this, if we educate the consumer in small marketing activities, what we see is in a big hotel, 50 connoisseurs or sommeliers tasting wine, and it is good, but it is not sufficient. We have to increase the category of wine. If we have to make the business, as Mr. Ravi Jain would say, the business of the business is to make money. There's no money in wine. And if we want money in wine, we have to make it interesting. And when I say interesting, it should be at the right price, right quality, and it must be appreciated and respected by the consumer. I'm not talking in general. I'm trying to bring home the point that, you know, it's time that the entire industry does not compete, but collaborate. There was a time when Mr. Vijay Rekhi and the likes of Jolly Bhargav and Kapil Channa and all, Mr. Chaudhary is here, I mean others also. We all used to collaborate, work hard to make our presence felt in the market, like Shaw Wallace and UB that time, to ensure that the category grows. Now I see the same thing in beer, craft beer, you know, citrus beer, coffee beer. You know, the young consumer wants the best, and he or she is prepared to pay any amount of money, provided he or she understands that he or she is drinking the best in class. So that is what is needed for wine. Just to sum up the point, or my view, every wine company must have a scorecard for each sales rep on ground for doing wine appreciation, wine education programs, so that that company in any case will benefit, so that the entire category grows and wine is respected in our country. As Ankur beautifully said, it will only increase the category of the spirits business. And it will not be like an add-on sphere of spirits business. It will be an integral and respected part of wine. So let's work on the grammar of the language. It's never too late in life. If I spent a lot of time, I was trained on wine by Modesto people, Sonoma Valley and all. I still, it is there fresh on my mind. We must work very closely and increase the entire category. And then all the prices will come down. Once the demand grows, once varietals are respected, generic wine is, why does the New World wine compete with Old World wine? Because they bring down price, push stocks. That is not how categories are created. Categories are created by wine appreciation. People must understand wine pairing. And Indian wine goes so well with Zinfandel or Blush. I mean, I can talk more, this is not the occasion. But at the cost of repetition, let's work on appreciation of wine and educating the consumer. Small activities by each company. We must collaborate and not compete. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vizrani. I think all of us sitting here stress the same need that awareness and education to grow the segment is something which is very crucial. Whether it's imported or domestic doesn't make a difference. The wine industry has to go up. Any other viewpoints among the audience, please?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ashish, and I do represent a hotel, and proud to be here. So, you know, touching upon Sir's point right now, and also Suresh, a couple of days ago when we were in a discussion in one of the embassies about food, on how chefs actually collaborated in a country which was nowhere there at a point in time to actually bring out the food culture. How in India, as I mean, various growers here, do we actually do that well? Do we collaborate actually as a country which makes some other wine, or say, let's say great wine now, collaborate to put it on a world stands. And I will relate it to a very, very small example. If I go to any hotel school today, or some of us here who either know about wine or don't know about wine and ask, can you tell me 5 regions of top 5 producing wines in the world? What would you hear? Burgundy, Bordeaux, now Napa Valley, couple of places in Australia. Ask 3 areas in India where actually a wine is grown or an estate. I don't think I'm confident enough to answer that question. So I mean, that's my viewpoint and question to the growers, suppliers, distributors, and as a common alcohol industry in India, how is it that we can do that better? So I can hear some answers if anybody has. Thank you.
I think, Ashish, you have a point there, you know, and I see what the Napa Valley producers did, you know, they sort of, you know, taking on Mr. Vazirani's point, they grew the category first, you know, the wine category, and then they started talking about wines. I've attended Napa Valley pure wine appreciation classes, you know, where different producers were present in terms of wine. I've seen that happen even in a place like Montalcino in, you know, Italy, and, you know, Champagne, the professional body does a lot of. So, you know, I think there is a point about all the producers, and now we have got people, we've got Charisma in Hampi, you know, we've got the Nandi Hills, we've got Nashik, you know, we've got Akluj, you know, we've got different areas. This time, everyone came together and promoted Brand India. I guess right now, we don't have a Napa Valley equivalent in India, I mean, in terms of the number of producers, but at least let's promote Brand India together. I think that that is, and where again the hotel in, the chefs can come in, you know, there can be a lot of, you know, like pairing the food and wine, and, you know, make it, makes basically Indian wine more exciting.
I just want to add on a few things to that. Very valid point, Ashish. And I think the biggest challenge there is that all the producers in India, they want to do more of this, but we are always limited by the resources that we have to do it. And also the fact that we cannot advertise openly. We are restricted only to do those seminars and sessions and tastings, whether it's for the trade or for the consumer. But at the end of it, how much can you do is a question, or how much money can you invest? So if my brand is available in about 21 markets in India, and we know that half of those markets probably don't make any money for us, right? In spite of that, we take that lead, which most of the probably importers will not even touch as of now because they think it's not worth considering. But we go and try to grow those markets. But there's also a limitation that you have. In most of the examples that we have seen, whether it's in Napa Valley or any other wine regions in the world, the support from the local government and other trade bodies is very, very important. Without that, I think it becomes very, very difficult. So I touched upon a point in my presentation where I said we had a forum called IGBP and PB, sorry, and that was only forum which was doing some work. I'm not commenting whether they were doing great work or not so great work, but they were at least a forum which was supposed to develop wine, also present these kind of initiatives and associations with other bodies, and it was definitely supported by government. A few years back, they withdraw that support, and suddenly we see that most of the wine producers were not able to carry it forward, and we have to drop that. So at that moment of time, you know, about 8 or 10 wineries in Maharashtra, we took a call that, you know, we'll come with a concept called Wines of India. So we created that forum within ourselves, and we said, let's start small. Let's start with Maharashtra and create some activations which were mainly on the same point, you know, educating the consumer, educating the trade partners, channel partners, and see what difference we can make. We went into forums, we wanted to do big events, but then again, the restriction is that leaving 2, 3, 4 big operators, everybody is very tight on the finances. So that's where I think the industry support from the government is most crucial for us to move forward there. And I think this great mode of work which is currently happening in on-trade, a lot of us believe that, you know, the brands are built up in on-trade and then the success is replicated in the retail segment. So out there, I think it is very important for a wine producer like us to get that support from the trade, and especially from the hotels. And I do see many hotels are supporting it, right? So it's slowly coming up. We are working a lot with, for example, schools and colleges who are doing the hotel management programs, or people who are doing the wine programs. And every time that we have an opportunity, we go there and tell them about wine, tell them about the region. But there's a lot more still required for us to have the wine culture grown into them. So next time that somebody asks, okay, which are the 5 wine regions, you must say there's a Nandi Hills, or you must say there's a Nasik Valley, or there's a Hampi region out there. A lot more work is required, but I think we still are in the same direction.
I just want to add a bit to what Subed also said. Collaborative efforts is definitely we need to do a lot more of. And extending on the point about finances, what Subed said is, right now the few producers who are around, everybody has their individual marketing budgets. They're doing what they're doing for their brands. For collaborative efforts, there's always an outside push that needs to come in. In a lot of regions like Napa Valley and other countries, a lot of it is in the form of government support. They all have budgets which they're given, allocated. These are professionally run organizations. I remember someone from the Australian Wine Board had come to Australia or some region, I forgot. It was in Bombay, and they actually had he was like he was the CEO for that board, for that promotional body. He had a budget, and they would go out there and promote. Sorry. Western Australia, yeah, that's the one. So he was literally the CEO. They have a budget, they have a program. It's very professionally run, and no individual it's no individual agenda. So this is something that needs to come from outside as well. How, we still don't know. The first body we always look to is the government, because they conduct various initiatives to promote industries. So that is something that is still lacking for us over here. And there is no magic pill for the industry. There are so many small things that can be done at various levels, whether it's hotel, restaurant, education, and hotel management colleges. There are so many things, and because of the constraints of the industry, there is only so much we can do. So we are still hoping for that outside push to come in that can really further spread the gospel of wine, so to speak. We all do what we do for our brands with our resources. But that outside push and impetus is still lacking in the industry right now.
Thanks, Ravi. Any other viewpoints
Hi.
on the forum?
Hi, my name is Gyanendra, and I just heard all your points listening to what Ashish had and what Sumedh had and what I have few things, where we are lacking about wines, since wine has been now about 15, 17 years old into the country, where people have been talking about. The wine education is the biggest issue, which I believe is one of the credential points, which most of you have touched that. But I believe the government needs to take initiative to open more wine schools. Today we don't know about wine valleys or 3 regions or 4 regions or 5 regions in India. The reason is because we don't have any proper wine schools in India. What we are doing is certification courses in small areas, and that really does not really give an effect. So I had put up a point about a couple of years back to the government, and still it's lying in a file back down about the wine schools to open in different parts of the country. But unfortunately, only Maharashtra is the region where government took some initiative but left it alone again. Secondly, I believe there is a point where most of us are looking in, but nobody's talking about this wine tourism. Wine tourism is very important for us to know where all we are growing and what we are growing. Although growers in Sula are doing a bit on wine tourism, but that's not enough. That's what my personal opinion is. As Sumedh stated, my suggestion of what to have, different states and different cities, the wine the wine producers should move out. That would not only give the education life, but also give a marketing point to the wine companies as they grow their names, because we have a very, very, conducted areas about the marketing and the advertisement about the liquor states. So I believe, if we can start few more education schools, and hotels need to take an initiative. If hotels start educating there and start some small programs for them, for their own consumers, I think so that's going to give a good knowledge. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ganendra. I think it's again reiterating the same point that we need more education, wine awareness needs to grow up, and the category will grow. So we have some more thoughts from this table. Yes.
Main reason why the volume is not picking up, maybe I'm wrong, is because wine seems to have taken an elitist view as much as marketing and production is concerned. There is something called bottom of this pyramid. Now, Mr. Chowdhury very clearly said that €1 you get 1 liter or 1 bottle of wine in a European country, which is a very expensive GDP per person country, on an economic salary wise. India is still, we are a third world country. So what you could do from what Mr. Raju has said is categorization of that. We are talking about education, we are talking about government. Believe me, this will never happen in India, okay? Because so long as there is no prohibition, which I'll be talking later, you're very lucky, at least government is not putting any impediment. So don't ask for anything more than that in this country. If it happens, it's bonus to you. So basically, what you guys have to do is to make it generic so that even an ordinary middle class man to start with can prefer wine. So that categorization, slowly you bring it up to the top of the pyramid. Unless otherwise, we'll all be rounding and rounding and rounding. Nothing will happen because it's my own experience in Kerala, which is highest taxation. I don't know, somebody said that wine has been highly, in fact, we always fight with the government that wine is being given a special treatment in states like Kerala. Let it be, God bless you. So, but how do you bring down the pyramid to the bottom is by looking at the packaging. Because I find that you guys are still going ahead with glass bottles. The world has changed. This $1 and €1, you will find them in Tetra packets or a big ordinary, even PET bottles. So you go there and create the awareness. As we increase our GDP and our personal wealth, people will migrate into whatever you are selling today. So that's my, because this is my own experience when I started in liquor trade about 15, 16 years back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. So any last minute thoughts? Any, maybe last one? Anybody? Yep, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Harshavat from International Institute of Hotel Management. It's my 3rd year. I just want to add a point to this, so that what I think is that we should more focus on the students of the hotel management. What we are teachers from the 2nd year about the wine. And I mean, it's only 6 months, then we go for our industrial training, and we come back and we go for our campus. So I mean, I don't think so that 6 months of, education of the knowledge is very much. So they should start with the 1st year. There should be a proper different subject for the wine, and there should be a different faculty who has a good knowledge of wine, and he can, he can boost up. And because when we get a passion when we are aware of it, people or students, they are not aware of it, so they don't get a passion. And when we enter to the hotel industry, we are the roots. If we ourselves don't know about the wine, how will sell that product? How will know the guest that what palates he have, or how can we explain him about the grapes? So that's it. Thank you.
I'll just add to it. The 5 years back, what I stated to the government was that we should add a subject in the 3rd year of the institute about the wine specifically. But unfortunately, it's still lying in the pack.
So 2nd year of hotel management very much has a subject of wines. I think there's enough and more knowledge available on Google on wines. If one really wants to get onto it, I don't see a problem. With regards to the school as well, I think with the WSET level 3 coming inside, level 2 coming over here, the trainings that are happening, I feel there is enough happening already. I still feel there is not much of audience right now. Just to kind of back the fact, we had to postpone the WSET level 3 when I was working in the hotel a couple of times because we could not get 20 people who were ready to do a WSET level 2 or a 3. at that point of time, and that's when we were sponsoring the location for that matter. So I think there is a lot available if one really wants to, get out and do it. And particularly for your institute, I think there are about 8-9 students that actually went to Europe trip last year. Yeah, IHMs, it does not happen even then. Yeah, so I think there's still a lot happening. Then secondly, I think the legal drinking age is also another big concern. We cannot do a lot of training and tastings legally, so to say, because the legal drinking age is also a little higher than what college students are. So I don't know, setting up the school. I mean, we might have to kind of go somewhere in the midway for that matter. So but there is enough knowledge, is what I want to say. Just
We do conduct a lot of training programs for the colleges without the tasting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there is a lot already happening. It's not that it's not happening. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm seeing a lot of negativity around in the room that this is not happening, that is not happening. It is not. Last 10 years, look at the pace the wine has actually grown up. I think look at internationally. We're talking, or we're comparing with the countries which have decades of experience in terms of wines. We are actually comparing with the countries wherein the kids grow in the vineyards itself. I think compared to that, the kind of growth India has got with Indian wines particularly, I think it's tremendous. It's a lot of effort from both the sides. 5 years ago, I didn't know there was a position known as beverage manager. Today, a middleman doesn't know there is a sommelier, in a hotel, but there are, and I think a lot of hotels have started doing that. I know there's a lot or a long way to go, but I think in last 10 years, what has happened is commendable. From both sides, producers, consumers, everywhere for that matter.
I actually had a question for Carolina. What was the tipping point for the wine industry in Chile? Was it government push, consumer demand, export? What was it that really changed, that suddenly wine production boomed in Chile? And what do you think, is there anything that we can learn from that over here?
Well, thank you. I think it's different points. In some moment, as I mentioned, Chilean people doesn't understand so much wine. We produce, but we don't understand better. So what's common in Chile, including today, see people mix red wine with Coke, for example. So the companies start to explain, and we create Wines of Chile as an association, and then they start to teach to the people everything about the environment of wine. So they show that drink wine is something sophisticated, drink wine is something for socialize, that is something that you can have a very good conversation with the people, and you open a bottle of wine and you share with them. So then the people start to drink more wine, then the people start to understand internally. But then also the Chilean companies see in countries as United States or Europe that they want to try different varieties of wines. So they produce, but they also want to try something different. So in that sense, the industry start to develop technologies and develop other options for this kind of consumers that they want to see something different. And we start to work with our variety Carmener. So they want to start to work to show that we have something that you cannot find in Europe or United States, for example. Also, the tourism was something important. The wineries start to open the places for visits, with hotels. Now you can find hotels in that wineries that provide wine massage, for example. So that try to cover everything in different aspects, and I think that helps to the people to understand more about the world wine.
So, sorry. Thank you so much. I think it was a very, very productive session. We have far exceeded our time limit, but I would like to thank Spiritz for organizing this and giving us this opportunity and platform to share. Thank you so much, esteemed speakers. Great insight, multidimensional, different aspects. And I will wind up with saying that, yes, conditions have been tough. And when it comes to domestic wine players, it is more about the race for survival rather than anything else. So in these kind of scenarios, of course, we need to come together as industry bodies, as the government support, and I'm sure things will grow. Wine for sure is a great possibility for India. We have proved that we can produce good quality wine. If we can produce a wine and sell it at 5,000 rupees a bottle, and we have consumer asking for it more, I think we can do everything in India. It's just a matter of time. Growth can be faster if all the partners in the industry can come together and push it. But otherwise, we are growing 15%, which is still faster than most of the wine markets in the world. Great scope, and I'm sure sun will shine on Indian wine market soon. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
So passion is awareness, and awareness is education. And that was such an enlightening session on wines, future of wine business in India. And thank you so much, all the speakers, all the panelists. It was such an enlightening session. For a layman like me, I don't know how many like me people are there, but for someone like a layman also, it was a lot of knowledge. Thank you so much. And on this note, we're going to take a very short break for around 30 minutes, and we'll get back here for the second session of today.
Thank you. I just need to say what Sorish suggested. There's a wonderful point. You said that all these decisions are virtually go waste if you do not put into some kind of action. So from next year onwards, we intend to create some knowledge sessions, also some seminars, where I need industry support, where Spiritz can be a vanguard for this kind of stuff. We invite experts from different parts of the world. We can sit down, also invite the government to be part of the discussion, so we can have some kind of action taken report. And we will submit it to them so that the government can actually brood over it, and we can work as a kind of a pressure group to get what we actually want them to do for us. Indian Grape Processing Board has gone, nothing's happening on that front. So we need to do something collectively. So Spiritz need your support to take that step. We can meet later on and talk about it, how to concretize that particular, what format should be. Sorish input would be most welcome on that. And let's do that and make it some kind of a sustainable action program for the wine industry. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, everyone, for being a lovely audience. We're going to assemble here for the second session very soon. Thank you so much.